My greatest desire is to create a safe and sacred place. One for women to be barefaced and bare-souled. A place they can share early experiences and stories that may be holding them back, or those that could propel them forward. It's in the telling that we find ourselves. Chelli Wolford has been a successful entrepreneur and businesswoman. She has built the social media presence for a global superstar, founded a company that empowers female entrepreneurs, and volunteers for an organization that provides advocacy for battered women and children. But before this success, she had to dig through her own life story in order to turn her pain into service. She was abandoned by her mother at 18 months, sexually abused at 4, and was a survivor of college sexual violence her freshman year at the Naval Academy. Today, Chelli reads her love letter to her younger self and reveals how she survived, then thrived.
Okay, so my dearest Chelli Belly, this nickname is going to stick. You will eventually find it endearing. First, and I need you to really get this, like in your cells, know this. It's not your fault. Your mother leaving you when you were just a baby, being molested when you were a child, getting gang raped your first year of college, none of it was your fault. It will be easy for you to blame yourself, to shame and convince yourself that it was somehow your fault, that you were being punished, that God forbid you deserved it. Sweetheart, it just wasn't your fault. Stop asking why and start looking to transform your pain into purpose. This is how you find peace and become of service to the world.
At one point in time, you talked about maybe this was your fault.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the lesson that's taken me the longest to learn has been that things happen. Things happened to me very early on, like from the very beginning. So I was abandoned as a child. I was tossed around some relatives until I was adopted when I was 7. But during that time, I was molested by a relative, and then I got accepted to the Naval Academy, and I thought, this is my out. This is how I get out of this small town in Ohio, and I changed my trajectory. And I really believed that I would be safe there, and that I was going to this place of integrity and character and honor, and then I get gang raped my first year. And I remember that I was sitting on the floor of the closet in my room at the academy and had an X-Acto knife to my wrist, and I was sobbing and then quiet. And I think that's what happens, like you just feel like you can't cry any harder, and then silence. And this like inner voice says to me, like, this happened to you because you can handle it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that I've told myself many, many times to survive. Like, this happened to you because you can handle it. Eventually, after I stopped saying I got this, it's fine, I'm fine. These things happen to me, but I'm okay. And eventually you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm not okay. Yeah. And I need to do the work, which was years of therapy and lots of reading and workshops and seminars. And then finally, I had to forgive. I had to forgive my parents for abandoning me. I had to forgive my relative for, what happened. And then I had to forgive my 20-year-old self, I would say that entire decade, because I was acting out on all the stuff that had happened to me. So I was making bad decisions, I was being flaky, I was dating all the wrong people, married the wrong person, and I had to forgive myself for all that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important that, like, once you survive the terrible thing, to be able to look back on the terrible thing and eventually go, actually, the terrible thing was kind of a blessing.
And I've known you now for a little while. You've wanted to be a mom for a long time, and now you have that chance. So tell me a little bit about the little girl you're fostering.
Her story is incredibly tragic. Her biological mother is in jail right now awaiting sentencing for the murder of her 2-year-old sister. And then she also has an older sister who's 4. And they were deeply, like, the worst kind of neglect you could ever imagine. Mm-hmm. I remember texting my friend and going, I think I need to go get this baby. 3 days later, I had her in my home, mm-hmm. and I've had her ever since.
She's safe with you. And I think it's interesting, you were a middle child. You talked about being abandoned by your mother. And here this little middle child is abandoned by, the people who are supposed to take care of her. And you step in. And I think that's such a beautiful, life circle moment.
Yeah, there's part of me that's yeah, I'm saving this little girl. And there's part of me that's like, yeah, I'm saving myself.
And it's a really beautiful kind of turn of events from the outside looking in, because I know that that's one of the things you wanted more than anything was to become a mom. And we've talked a little bit about your experience in the Naval Academy. And I know that you thought at one point in time that maybe you were being punished. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So my first year at the Naval Academy, it was a Saturday night, and my roommates were gone for a swim meet, and I was asleep, and then I was awake. 4 or 5 guys from my company had come in, and I don't remember a lot of it, honestly. It was very out-of-body experience. I was gang raped. I really didn't know how I was going to handle the situation. And that's when I was talking earlier about being on the closet floor. I always retreat to the closet in my most stressful moments. If there's a closet, I'm going to be in it.
You're going to find your way into it.
Yeah. Getting a small, dark space and trying to figure out like what my next move is. So I ended up spending 2 weeks in Bethesda Naval Hospital. And the thing is, at the Naval Academy, people try to commit suicide all the time because it's wildly stressful. So it didn't even occur to me to think about, missing a period. Mm-hmm. So when I finally realized I went to the doctor, I was 14 weeks, which is very far along. So I had to go down to Washington, D.C., the only abortion clinic that I could find, and it was being picketed. I remember walking in and being spit on. It was a horrific experience. It was super painful. And I remember the doctor saying, oh, this was going to be a big baby, because that's exactly what I wanted to hear in that moment. So I got it done. I went back to school and acted like nothing happened, because that's what I had to do to keep living, to keep moving forward. So yeah, years later, when I really wanted to have a child and I wasn't, getting pregnant when I was married, I always had the thought, like, maybe because I did this, maybe now the universe is punishing me. Because I think I believed that then. I don't believe that now.
So I remember having dinner with you one night and you actually sharing those words, like you weren't at the place yet where you believed there was something grander coming. You were at the place where you weren't able to have a child and you wondered if maybe, and you were tearful about it. And I remember wanting to crawl across the table and be like, no, no, you can't take that on. And it was through your volunteerism at Safe Nest, a shelter that works with women who've been the victims of domestic violence, that you came across this situation because you were trying to help women who needed help because you'd been there before. And that's been my experience with you, is you're always trying to help women be better, to heal themselves, to move the trajectory of their lives forward. And then you get a phone call. And of course you stepped up. And I remember immediately it was like, okay, we're gonna go get the baby room together. People were coming to your house, putting a nursery together. It was a done deal. It was
in a weekend. Yeah, I had a nursery thrown together and went and picked up Bella, and yeah, I mean it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But absolutely, it's just been also the greatest experience of my life. Like, just incredible. Learn to forgive like it's your job. Forgive those who have hurt you. Forgive yourself for those you have hurt. Forgiveness is freedom. Learn to live intentionally, and you won't need to ask for forgiveness near as often. Everything will fall into place.
I know you are a huge proponent of forgiveness. It's almost like a practice. So tell me, like, are you actively, there are some relationships, right? Like, that you have that end, and you still have to see that person, or you still have to experience their effects much later.
Yeah.
Do you forgive them daily?
So a couple years ago, my relative who molested me when I was a child sent me a message on Facebook. And he basically admitted, to everything that he did. And he said, I'm so sorry. And I was a kid myself. He was in his early teens. He had been molested, which I had always suspected, but I didn't know. And I hadn't talked to him in, years. And he was like, do whatever you want to do with this information. I mean, I basically had his confession written. And he's like, but I just want you to know I'm so proud of the woman that you've become. And
was that hard for you to hear from him?
No, it was actually like the message that set me free, because I had spent all these years demonizing him, and I'm going to make myself cry. And I didn't realize like he had been so hurt too. Like nobody was watching us. We were kids and he had been abused and he was doing what he had learned. And not that I'm, condoning it, I'm not at all. But to have the bravery to send that to me and say, I'm so sorry, he owned it. And I responded back the next day and I said, you and I are good and thank you. Like that's the bravest thing I've ever read. It just set me free. Like, okay, I'm done with that story. People will give you all the information that you need to make decisions about whether or not you should allow them into your life and heart. Not only will they show you, sometimes they will also tell you. Don't think you can love them better. You can't. Don't justify bad behavior. When they show you who they really are, believe them.
I love when you talk about loving someone better. I've heard you say this several times. And you find people who have hurt or have pieces that need to be healed, and you want to love them better because you see the beauty in them. That's not always the fairy tale ending.
I did believe that you could love people better because I wanted to believe I could love myself better. I was molested when I was 4 until I was 12. So, no didn't mean anything, and my body wasn't my own, and there were no boundaries. I've had to learn all that stuff myself. I've had to recreate myself because I didn't have anyone around like helping me like build the blocks. The foundation had been blown up, so I had to build it.
You had to become the woman that you needed in your life.
Absolutely.
You love that quote.
Yeah, I do love that. Like the minute you think like, oh, I got this. I've figured this out. I've healed myself from this divorce. I'm ready for my next love. I've healed all my issues with men. And then my second husband came along. And it's like the universe goes, really? How about here? How about this person is going to trigger you in so many ways you don't even know,
right?
And question everything you've ever thought about love and betrayal. And
the karmic lesson was just packaged differently.
After my second divorce, I told myself, karmic debt paid in full, stamp. like anything I've ever done to hurt anyone, I have paid back. And I'm good.
I love that you declared it, though.
Absolutely.
You were like, here, I'm done. I'm finished.
Yeah.
Don't bring this around me anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Marry that kind guy that you think is too good for you. This will change the trajectory of your life. Having a supportive partner who will assist you in your becoming will be everything.
Talk to me about this one.
There's one man in particular that will be that guy that got away from me, that because of how I felt about myself, because I thought he was way too good for me and came from a way too normal family. And I was afraid I would never live up to who I thought he should be with, which at the time was not me. So I sabotaged it spectacularly. It goes back to, you just really have to learn to love yourself. But I thought I was broken, that I didn't deserve what he was giving me. And honestly, I was in no place at the time to receive it. Now I would be, but back then I just wasn't.
And I love how your story just continues to evolve and to grow, because a lot of the things that I'm hearing you say, you post about online. When you posted on Instagram this morning that you were terrified about today.
It's important to me that I tell the truth always. And if it's really, really scary, then I definitely want to share it, because I lived in lies for a long time. I had to, hold secrets of things that had happened to me, of the men that had done it, and I don't want to do that anymore. It's just not, it didn't serve me, and it's not who I am.
And I think one of the things that I love about your writing and knowing you, and I don't know that you recognize this necessarily, you are constantly helping other people. And sometimes it may just feel like sharing your story, or it may just feel like volunteering or something like that. But you have people in the community who they are holding on to some of the light that you share. And even in with your consulting, it's been to embolden and empower women in business. So you're constantly trying to help people be better versions of themselves.
It's because of what I've gone through that if I can fast track someone else, if I can say, listen, sweetheart, I get you. I've been through this. Let me help you jump through these hoops and get here faster and not have to go through this pain. Then then it's worth it. That's the whole point, I think. That's when I say pain into purpose. Like, that's my purpose. I went through all the stuff that I went through so that I can help other people get through it. It heals me as well. So it's my greatest joy to say something or share something that helps someone else heal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're building stronger women, you know, as a result. And you're a woman's woman.
I am a woman's
You
woman.
are so about supporting women and making them better heard, seen, giving them the space to feel their feelings and feel normal in your vulnerability and in your bravery.
Some things are never going to make sense, and that is okay. Your mother not choosing you is going to perplex you most of your life. Instead of asking why, just know that she did the best she could with the tools she had. You will do better because you know firsthand what it feels like to be left behind. It will take you a little while, but eventually you will see your curses as blessings. Your worst days will become the best days that shape you into a wildly compassionate woman.
So I love this. You talk about not understanding your mom. And so my mom recently wrote me an email. And she's apologized for things that have happened in the past, but she actually shared abuses that she had suffered that I didn't know anything about. And it was one of those moments you talk about someone setting you free. Within a few days, she sent me a note and it said, I want you to know that you are a good mother. And it was in those moments that I was just like, thank you. Thank you for finally letting me go to some extent, you know, letting me know that you see me and, you know, that people don't do things because they don't like you or because you were bad. They do things because of whatever it is that they've experienced before you.
Yeah, I've had a lot of like very surreal moments and conversations with my mother from the very beginning. I didn't meet her until I was 18. And I think about the last time I saw her, we were driving from Miami to Orlando, so stuck in the car for 2.5, 3 hours while she told me about her childhood. And she's a very thick Cuban accent. And she's like, Michelle, you don't understand. I was abandoned. My mother beat me. She then, you know, it was these incredible stories, but I'm like, oh, I understand.
You did it to me, right?
I was driving and listening to her stories and thinking, this is so ironic that I am comforting my mother who abandoned me. And I did, and it was okay, you know. And just recently, very similar to your experience, she heard what I was doing with Bella, and she sent me a text message that was like, you know, what you're doing is amazing, and you know, you're going to be a really good mom. And this is someone who didn't raise me, but I think that there's just something about us genetically, like as human beings, that we have to hear from our parents that we're good people. Right. Like I do think I'm going to be a really good mother, and I appreciate that. You know, going back to Bella, I just recently read the criminal report of like what happened with her and her sisters, and so her mother is awaiting trial for murder of her 2-year-old sister. And I have to say, honestly, in the beginning, I had a lot of compassion for, she's a young mom, and what she was dealing with. And she went through the foster care system, and she had an abusive relationship. So I had a lot of compassion for her. And then I read these papers and how the girls had been treated, and the neglect and the abuse. And I thought, you should know better. Like, you should know better. You went through the system. You were abused. So it's that, you know, you either do what you know, have been taught, or you go, I would never.
I think everyone that is around you knows the love and intention you have to make sure that this child is raised in a way where she's the strongest woman she can possibly be.
When you hear their story, like their full story, it's a miracle that 2 out of the 3 survived. It really, really is. And so she's got strong already. I see it every day like when she doesn't get what she wants, or I'm hoping that I'm going to help her work like balancing the strong with some soft. Like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not have it all figured out. It's okay to not know all the answers. Because I think women in general, we grow up like feeling like we have to like hit it out of the park all the time. and you don't. I spent a shocking amount of my life trying to prove to other people that I deserved to be in the room, that I deserved to be there. And I literally had men at the Naval Academy tell me I definitely did not. I mean, they just because I was a woman, I wasn't allowed to be there. Even though I was running as far as they were, I was doing as many push-ups as they were, and it was so annoying to me that I'm like, I got here just like you did, and I'm keeping up. I'm not slacking behind. So yeah, I think the earlier I could have gotten you don't have to prove yourself, and just stop it, because it's so much work, and it's not necessary. I was enough. And
they didn't diminish you.
No.
Yeah, they made you stronger. And I think, so I was raised in corporate America. I'm around men all the time. I grew up in a patriarchal family. It's amazing how it's almost like this kind of noise beneath your skin. It's almost like this, you're constantly thinking that you have to show up, look different, be louder, be more professional, you have to be smarter, you have to be something to be heard and to be seen. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this. So my daughter, after I had her, I didn't realize how different I was from the men in the room until I came back from maternity leave. And they wanted to know how I was going to make up the revenue the company lost from me being gone. And I was like, I just made a human being. Like, that's pretty amazing. Like, you go make up the revenue.
Finally, thank you for being a brave, badass, risk-taking young girl. You got me here, but now I got you. I'm holding you so tight. You're safe, and you can trust me completely. You can be vulnerable and soft and feminine. I will not judge you. Cry if you need to cry. Say your scary things out loud. Be your most authentic self. I will be with you every day until the day we die, and I will forever be your biggest fan. You saved me, and I saved you. It will take you a few years, but you will realize I'm the love of your life.
You saved yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe in all this time searching for your mom, searching for a man, searching for your child,
Yep.
you were looking for you.
Absolutely. I think that's been my biggest takeaway. There's something incredibly empowering about being able to sit with yourself and be okay. I just think, like, that little girl was just so brave and still able to have these big dreams for herself, even though everyone around her was like, I didn't have a lot of people that were supporting the dreams that I had, that's for sure. I mean, when I went to my guidance counselor and said I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, she was like, you will never get in. And I was like, okay, thank you for that. I like to say, like, you don't know what you can accomplish when you don't know what you can't accomplish. So, like, if you don't have people telling you what you can't, then the world's your oyster. You can, everything was possible for me. So, yeah, and then after my last divorce, my biggest takeaway, the most important takeaway that I could ever get was, gosh, I'm gonna have to really love myself. I'm gonna have to really learn to love myself and be okay with all of it. The girl that was molested, the girl that was raped, the girl that hurt and betrayed men that loved her, the girl, all of it. If you can have a solid foundation of, I know who I am, I love who I am, I love the dark, I love the light, and this is what I stand for, and you're strong in that, then the other stuff that happens in life, you're ready, you're prepared to handle it, no matter how hard or painful or beautiful. You're able to accept all of it.
I love it. Well, you're full of light, and I'm so thankful that you were willing to do this with me. I know that when you originally wrote this letter, you wrote it so many times.
Yeah, I did.
And I was most nervous, I think, about this interview because I really wanted to honor your story, and know that there are women out there, from my experience when I've shared just some of the things that you've said, they need to hear it. And thank you for sharing it and trusting me to do it.
It is my greatest pleasure, really. I'm glad that I did.
Thank you.